Welcome to 5 Best Bikes, where we talk about the 5 best bikes on whatever day we're riding. So today, I've got Andy. Andy, who are you and what do you do?
Andy Leisner. I've got a long title, but basically I'm the managing director of the Bonnier Motorcycle Group, which I was thinking about as we were coming on here. I think that means whenever something goes wrong, it's my fault here.
The final finger points there.
That's what it feels like, at least. And then I'm also on the board of directors of the Motorcycle Industry Council, and so this particular topic today is real important to us there, and so I'm excited to talk about it.
It's going to be fun. So just some background information. So how long have you been with Bonnier? You've done a lot.
I did a stint with Cycle World in the late '90s, and then was asked to come back in 2010. So I've been here for 9 years.
Great. And you used to be a racer.
Yeah, I did some racing when I was young. I grew up racing motorcycles, motocross as a kid. I wasn't a very good motocrosser, and then got into road racing and did okay there, and ended up racing AMA Nationals for a few years, and then 1 year in the 250 World Championship.
So he's got a serious pedigree when it comes to knowing about street bikes and riding. So he's just not a guy behind the scenes that looks at charts and graphs and reports and pushes paper.
I do a lot of that.
He does do a lot of that, and he's good at that too. But he also is a rider, and he rides all the time. He probably rides more than even some of the editors at times.
Yeah.
So
enjoy riding to work every day.
he does on all kinds of two wheels, which we might talk about a little later too. So because you're spot on the MIC, you guys have a mission to help grow motorcycling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so let's talk about some issues real quick on why we're kind of seeing this kind of not stagnant, but not a growth that's matching the market in other places right now.
Yeah, we see, where the growth levels in motorcycling for millennials, and then don't replicate what we saw with boomers and Gen X when they were that same age. And then the other thing that we're not seeing as much is Gen X, and we're just sort of at the beginning of this potential, but we really need Gen X to re-enter motorcycling like boomers did, and we're not quite seeing that yet. But the big issues that we're focusing on are millennials entering motorcycling, and then we're terrified of Gen Z, who are kids that are about 22 years old now or younger right now, this being 2019. We're very worried about their propensity to take on motorcycling as a transportation choice or enthusiast.
Right, and really transportation in general, even, right? You see a lot of Gen Zers not even getting their driver's licenses. So if you don't have a driver's license, there's going to be no motorcycle license,
hard to get a motorcycle
right?
license when you don't have a driver's license.
So it's a pretty big task facing the whole industry, and MIC works towards that along with all the manufacturers.
Yeah, and us here at the Bonnier Motorcycle Group, it's really important to us to leverage the reach that we have to consumers to try to get some new people interested in the sport.
Cool. So that's going to be our list for today. It's going to be the 5 best bikes to grow motorcycling. And this list is probably going to be pretty varied and all over the place. And absolutely, there's going to be some disagreements on bikes, not only between the two of us maybe, but definitely with our viewers. And so we want to hear your comments about it. So definitely put them down below. But we're going to start this thing off. And we're going to have a little bit of a change from what we normally do. We used to have a 10-minute timer, which we would try to knock this list out in 10 minutes. And it seemed to kind of stifle the discussion at the end to where we were really arguing out which bikes were best. So that timer is gone in the trash. We'll try to keep this succinct as possible, but no more timer. So as always, I give first dibs to the guests. So Andy, why don't you hit me with your first thoughts on bikes?
Great. My first is a new old bike, and that's the Honda Super Cub. They've sold, I think I read a statistic, over 100 million Super Cubs. In the 60s, it really fueled the motorcycle boom here in America. You got the nicest people on a Honda back then.
It's one of the most sold motorcycles globally. I mean, probably in any other developing country or small country, if you ask them to draw an image of a motorcycle, they would actually probably draw a Super Cub.
Yep, with the what do they call it? An underbone frame. That step through frame.
Yeah.
It's only $3,600, which is a great price. And one of the things I love about it, there's no clutch lever. And
yeah, that's a huge barrier to someone that's learning on how to actually ride. So it takes away one thing they have to worry about. Gets them into riding, gets them on the two wheels a little bit easier, and lets them experience how much fun that it really is. Right?
It's a great taste of motorcycling that I think would have someone grow into something bigger.
Absolutely. So I'm going to put it on the list for sure. So we always write our bikes on my trusty white gaffer tape, put them up on the toolbox, and then as we go along, we take some off, we put some on, and at the end we have probably usually more than 5, we pull them off. So we're going to start with the Super Cub because I don't think we will argue about this one. This one will probably go on and stay on.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to argue against the ease of use and the approachable price point. And
yep, exactly. So since you started with a Honda, I think I'm going to follow up with a Honda as well.
Okay.
And that is a bike that we have sitting in the studio with us, a CB300R. Bit more than a Super Cub, obviously, but it's a full-on motorcycle, which some people that are jumping into the market may not want that clutchless step-through style. They may be wanting the experience of owning a motorcycle, and this is a really easy one to own. It's light. It has enough power to do anything you want with. It's got wonderful ergonomics. It's easy to get along with, and of course, it's a Honda.
And,
so the dealer network is massive. There's so many pluses to a bike like this. If you're going to go full-on motorcycle with an actual clutch and a gearbox.
Your point about a real motorcycle is interesting because we have a CB1000R here. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Here as well right now in the same color scheme. And from 5 paces, it's hard to
tell the difference. And we see that in a lot of manufacturers lately. And you look at Yamaha with their R3 to R6 to R1. You look at KTM Super Duke, 790 Duke, 390 Duke. Same thing. If you put them across a room and you weren't completely versed on which was which, the layman couldn't tell the difference between the three of them. So that's a really cool part about lower capacity motorcycles these days, is that they are becoming very much like their larger motorcycles in terms of look and even features sometimes, right? So
true. It's a motorcycle with a clutch and a gearbox, which is a big stumbling point for a lot of people entering motorcycling. But at least clutch is progressive, brakes are progressive. Throttle is always perfect, so it's of a traditional style motorcycle, super easy to ride.
Super easy to get into. So I'm going to put it on the list, and we will see if it stays there. So CB300R. Why don't you go ahead and hit me with what your next thought is?
Yeah, my next one is a favorite of mine. I used to own one of these, and it's not necessarily a motorcycle. It's close to a motorcycle. It's a scooter. And that's a Vespa GTS 300. Okay. I picked this because of the approachability and again ease of use. It's not cheap. It's a $7,000 scooter new. There's a lot of bikes on the used market that are less, but it's anybody can really walk up if they know how to ride a bicycle. They can step through like the Super Cub. They don't throw their leg over. Twist the throttle and go.
Throttle, the brakes are at your hands, so it's nothing to do with your feet. So there's that. But I mean, like you said, it's $7,000. But honestly, we always think about getting into a motorcycle. They've got to be low priced or whatever. But I don't think that's really the case because there's all kinds of demographics and all kinds of price ranges for someone that's getting into motorcycling. Sure, a Gen Z or something is starting in their career, so they're probably a little bit more budget minded. But that doesn't mean to say they don't have the money or the credit to spend on a motorcycle, right? And I think we pigeonhole them a lot of times in that space, going, well, they're young, they don't have money, and they don't want to spend money, and they have bad credit. Well, that's not always the case. So I mean, I've seen plenty of people that are, 19, 20 they've got Ducatis, man.
And the financing available now for entry-level motorcycles is fantastic, or larger motorcycles or more expensive motorcycles. And we try to, when someone comes to me and says, oh, I want to buy my first motorcycle, and they go, I'm looking on Craigslist, and I always discourage them. I say, buy something that's new, that's got a warranty, that runs perfectly, and you can get finance. You can walk out with a $129 a month payment.
Exactly. It makes the ownership so much easier for your first motorcycle. I mean, used motorcycles and vintage motorcycles are rad. They have cool style, but they're paying the butt to own. And a lot of people, they get started down that road and then they bail on it because it's too much work, right? And I mean, it's too much work for me. I don't own anything old. I hate old motorcycles for ownership. I love looking at them, but I don't want one. I don't want to use motorcycles. So
and you have to be a great mechanic, and if you're new to motorcycling, you know nothing about making them run. It's tough.
Exactly. So I'm gonna put the Vespa here, because I think you see a lot of people will jump from a scooter eventually.
Yes.
Some will, some won't.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I mean, Vespa's part of the Piaggio group, and the money is coming into our industry, which helps grow it one way or another.
People making those are making Aprilia RSV4s and great Moto Guzzi's.
Exactly.
V85s,
so there's plenty of stuff. So I'm gonna go with one that we might actually both have on our list, and that's the other bike we have parked here. That's a Royal Enfield 650. I personally like the Continental GT. Kind of gives a cool cafe look to it. Amazing pricing. We're looking at just under $6,000. It's ridiculous how much motorcycle you actually get for that. And this is kind of the next big step for Royal Enfield.
This generation of Enfields works so well. I was so surprised when I rode these for the first time about the quality control, everything, all the throttle, clutch engagement, progressive throttle, great mapping. This is a motorcycle made in India, and it's mapped perfectly. No flat spots or hesitations, and it's super easy to ride. It reminded me a lot of a Honda when I got on it because it worked so well.
Yeah, the build quality is much higher than you would expect from a motorcycle made in that region of the world. We know that the population uses motorcycles a lot more, so they're a bit more disposable and they're a bit cheaper, and so they crank them out, and the quality control always isn't there. But for these, they're massively surprising how well they're built, how well they're put together, the finishes on them. I think they're an amazing value for what they are, and they're easy to ride. The power's like pretty good. It's not staggering. It's not surprising. It's just got really good fueling,
but it's got everything you need. It's faster than 99% of the cars on the road.
Exactly, and it's a real legit motorcycle for an amazing price that has the style that a lot of people that are actually looking for used bikes, or I'm going to use a word that actually Husqvarna uses a lot, a style buyer. So it might be somebody that's never bought a motorcycle, but it's like, if I'm going to get one, I want one that looks cool. Because I identify with that look, and that's the style I want, and this thing gives it to you at a pretty crazy, ridiculous price.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, the only difference that I had is I don't prefer the INT, I actually prefer this model, but for a beginner, I thought about the INT, 650 INT, or Interceptor as it's called in every country except America.
Except here, yep.
I just because the slightly higher bars, a little more traditional seating position, a little more leverage, and I actually prefer
I totally agree with that as well. I think for the cool factor, the Continental.
Yeah.
But I think the INT is actually an easier bike probably for a beginner rider or a newer rider, because like you said, you're not as leaned over, and you've got a more natural feeling wide bar that gives you a little more leverage and move around. So
they've done a great job at capturing that, sort of great styling, lifestyle oriented product, but with modern technology, but much like Triumph.
Very much so.
But at a price point that's amazing.
I mean, if you can't afford a Triumph, or you don't want to jump up to that level yet, this is a place to get your feet wet and really enjoy a good motorcycle. So let's put the INT on there instead of the Continental GT, and we'll go from there. So Yeah, it's a bike that we both had on our list, so I will give you the next shot.
Okay. The next one of mine is a little controversial, and it's I think this is going to grow motorcycling, not necessarily because people are going to buy this motorcycle, but I think it's a step towards a big growth curve in motorcycling, and that's the Harley-Davidson Livewire. You're thinking, well, $30,000 motorcycle, how many people are going to go out and buy that as their first bike? There's not going to be a lot, but I do feel like there'll be a few. There's going to be some Silicon Valley executives that drive Teslas that are going to see this motorcycle and want to buy it as their first. But what I see it more is what it's sort of done for motorcycling in the general media space, which we follow a lot. And the Harley-Davidson Livewire has been featured in every single general media publication brand on the market, from Forbes to NPR to, it's
that is for sure. It's grown the awareness, especially of electric motorcycling. But I'm gonna have to disagree a little bit, mainly because of the price point, but also because of the range barriers and things like that, where you're gonna have to have some extra things that go along with this, right? You're gonna have to think about where you're riding it. Your rides are gonna be short. So if you're riding in the city and you're riding urban, rad. But everyone dreams of getting a motorcycle to hit the open road. Right? So I don't see the Livewire being the one to grow, but I think it's the first step in that electric road.
Yeah, first step. I think we're going to see a lot more products coming from a lot of manufacturers, including Harley, that are an evolution of that from a price point standpoint, from a range standpoint. But one of the most attractive things about the Livewire, again, the price is prohibitive, but the most attractive things about the Livewire is not only no clutch, but no gearbox as well, and twist and go, and couldn't be easier to ride. Like the Vespa, it is twist and go.
Yep. Man, it's a tough one.
It's a $30,000 twist and go.
It's a $30,000 twist and go that you're gonna have to get a charger installed in your house, or plug it in. And there's some definite barriers. I think it's a great place for Harley-Davidson to start. I think it's amazing that Harley-Davidson is doing so much to get new riders with their whole plan to get what was it, 2.7 million riders or something.
Yep,
in the next 10 years. So, and Harley-Davidson is not on Harley-Davidson. It's into the world of motorcycling.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. But I don't think that bike in particular is going to help grow it. I think what comes after that from Harley-Davidson is going to grow it. So I want to leave that one off the list just for that reason. Fair enough. But okay, here's another one now owned by Harley-Davidson, which is also a twist and go, and it's electric, and that's a Stasic stability cycle. So if you haven't seen one, it's basically what looks like a Strider or a balance bike with an electric motor and a battery pack and a twist throttle and a rear brake. And it is for kids to learn how to make that step from a balance bike and a bicycle to a motorcycle. And their motto is ride sooner.
Yep.
And I have a review that we're just finishing up with my nephew. He's 4. He's ridden a Strider bike, and that's it. I took him out there. I was like, you're going to be our photo model, and you're going to test this bike. And he was super pumped. He walked over to it. I had the throttle on, and he jumped on it, sat down, twisted the throttle. It kind of just jumped forward on him. And I was like, oh, here comes the loop out, like I would have done when I was 5 years old on a 50. He sat down the seat, and he rolled off. And he was riding instantly. Instantly. And I think that right there is
where at his house, you can ride it at your house,
anywhere.
In your neighborhood, in the local park.
And it's getting. We're obviously missing the Gen Zers here, but we're getting the next generation of motorcyclists, and you got to start them from the ground up sometimes. And I think that really is a
I'm
builder.
In full agreement on that. When I grew up riding motorcycles as a kid from 6 to 10, I had a 60cc mini bike, and my buddies had Z50s, and we rode around the neighborhood on them, and no one blinked an eye. And nowadays you can't do that.
Can't do that.
And I've been waiting for a product like that. The kids can just come home from school and hop on and just have fun. There's some kids that come home from school and they have a motocross track in their backyard, but not many.
Yeah, many.
So I think it's going to create a whole new generation.
Get them hooked early. So
yeah, we always talk about the fact that there's that intoxicating feeling of rolling away from a stop on two wheels with balance and motion and power and smells and wind. That's just it's an intoxicating experience that you have to keep doing. And whether it's on a little Stasic, that's going to progress to a mini bike and onwards and upwards.
So I think it's a great place to start, and I know that my nephew is now hooked.
Yeah.
I mean, he was already kind of in, but once he got rolling, he was like, "This is amazing. I want to do this. This is all I want to do."
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree.
His older brothers didn't have that step. They went straight from bicycles to 85s and things like that, and they're less because they're a little frightened, and it takes a little more work to get it down, and they're already past part of the learning curve where it's super easy and natural. So let's start on the list. Who knows if it'll stay? Sick. But we'll put it on there now, and we'll go on to. I think we're getting down in our lists, and so where are you at? What are you thinking after this?
I have one that is by a well-known motorcycle company, but is not necessarily a motorcycle, but it's something that I also feel is an entry point into motorcycling, and that's the Yamaha Wabash.
Yeah.
So the Yamaha Wabash is basically, it's a gravel bike, and if you don't know what a gravel bike is, it looks like a road bike, but it has wider, bigger tires.
Road bicycle.
Excuse me. Wider tires. You can go on-road, off-road, light off-road duty, ride on-road with it, so it goes everywhere. And it is, but it is an electric assist e-bike.
Right.
So it's you pedal and you get electric sort of assistance as you pedal. It doesn't have a throttle on it. You have to pedal to get the electric power.
Right.
But it is a super fun bicycle to ride. All e-bikes are super fun to ride.
They are super fun to ride.
Really, really enjoyable. It's a whole different experience than riding bicycles. But again, I feel like it gives that experience of that intoxicating experience of motion and power and to someone. And some early data is showing that people that come in and start riding e-bikes want to take a next step and get into motorcycles.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. So it's a place to grow and a place to jump off from, and not everyone will jump off from there.
No.
But there are some ways to jump off to it. But
Yeah.
since
one of the problems though with this though is the price. It's not cheap. It's the same price as a Super Cub essentially.
It's $3,500. But that's actually still not that expensive in the world of e-bikes.
True.
I mean,
as an e-bike it is. Yeah.
I have a electric bike at my house. Yeah. It's a mountain bike, and it's $7,500. So I mean, the things are all over the place on price. So the price isn't bad, but I think because we are a motorcycle publication here at Cycle World, I don't think it fits the list for that. But
true. And one thing because it's not a motorcycle, one of the reasons that, and we look at this at the MIC very closely, it eliminates 3 big barriers to entry for motorcycling, and that is, it doesn't need a special license to ride it. Anybody can hop on it. It doesn't need insurance.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily need a parking space. You can park it in your apartment, inside your apartment.
True. Yeah, they're not too heavy, and you can take the battery out and take it inside and charge it if you're parking at a bike rack or whatever. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's a legitimate argument, but
yeah, I know.
Probably, but we may have a place for that in the future.
True.
It's on your shirt there.
Yep.
So we'll tease that a little bit. So what's on your shirt?
Yeah. So Cycle Volt is the newest brand from our group, and it's everything two-wheel with an electric motor. So that goes from a Stasic through the pedal assist e-bikes into electric motorcycles, electric, like the new KTM Mini electric Mini, the new Husky electric Mini, the new Honda CRF E that we're going to see coming. So we're gonna cover all that.
I mean, it's pretty interesting if you think about it. One, we're doing Cycle Volta, but even our discussion so far, there's been 3 electric machines in this discussion.
That's true.
And it kind of points to where the motorcycle industry is going and will be going. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's the reality. And don't knock it till you try it. I'm a motorhead. I love 2-strokes. I love smelling castor oil. It's burning. I love loud pipes, but I love electric stuff too. It's really good. So don't discount it.
Yeah,
Don't poo-poo it. I think it's a great place for our industry to grow in every direction.
Talk about all those senses that the you know, in the input you get from the experience. It's a different input twisting the throttle on an electric bike when it puts down that torque instantly without waiting for the revs to build. And it's neat.
So Wabash is out.
Okay.
But maybe it'll be on 5 best electric bicycles in the future.
Like a Volta,
right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with my last one. Actually, I got 2 of them. I'm gonna cut it short and cut one out. So I'm gonna go with Honda's line of new CRF trail bikes. 50 all the way up to like the 250. It's a full-on family effort. They redesigned them all. They all look like each other. They actually all get the same kind of fuel range, which is really cool. So that the family rides together. You're not having to like refuel one bike, and they're really selling it as a package to the family, which is cool because now they're not selling just one bike to one of those smaller kids and dad's got a bike over here. It's like everybody in the family needs a bike, which is really cool. And I think just for that, them thinking about not a bike for one person, but a bike for the entire family, it makes total sense, and it's going to help grow the market.
I totally agree, and my kids have grown up riding little CRFs, XR and CRFs, and the one thing that I really like about the line now is everything is electric start. Where it used to be just the 230 was electric start, but you had to kick the 150 and so on. But now everything's electric start, and my son on his XR50 when he was 4 or 5 years old, his little tiny leg with a giant motocross boot on it, he had such a hard time kickstarting that thing. And now kids just jump on, hit the button,
go. Right, it makes everything easy, and everything's kind of similar, the same, and there's some commonality in everybody's bike in the family. So
agree. The price point's great. The only issue is the ability to find a place to ride them. We live here in California, where if we want to ride dirt bikes, we got to load them up in a van and drive a couple hours.
Right.
I know it's different for a lot of the country.
But even some of the countries even more difficult than us. I mean, like New York State is very difficult to ride off road. So maybe it doesn't go on the list because of that. Because it's not universally available to everybody.
But from an off-road standpoint, I think that that is the perfect entry point into riding off-road. So I think from that respect, I'd put it on the list.
Okay, let's put it on the list.
We've just been talking about street. So
yep, CRFs, plural. Okay, hit me with. You got anything else you want to add? Do you have any other bikes on your list? Or are you there?
There are a lot of sort of style forward scramblers and such that attract people to the lifestyle for it's interesting now we see people who want to come to motorcycling because they want to be a part of the lifestyle, and they got to ride them as well. So there's a lot of bikes that do that really well. Ducati Scrambler's one, but I like to look at it as a complete package of price, ease of use, style. All together.
Okay.
You got to consider all those things.
Cool. So then let's narrow down this list. We only actually have to knock one off this list.
I know what your target is on there.
No, I'm having a real hard time with it.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. Because it doesn't quite qualify as a motorcycle, and it is a little pricey. There's the Vespa. And that being said, there are cheaper Vespas. There's the 150. The reason that I like the 300 it is fast.
It's legitimately the new GTS. We just had a review up on the site from Bruno DePrato, and he said it pulls away from lights really well. That new HPE engine. So,
but again, I think that from an entry point. Now that being said, though, an interesting note is that a lot of people who take at least the California riding school at the Department of Motor Vehicles do it on a scooter because it's the easiest thing to do there.
Exactly. So that's why I'm not sure if we pull that one off or we pull something else off.
But everything else is so good.
Everything else is so good. Okay, well, we'll pull it off not because it's a bad choice, but because there's other better choices.
Okay.
Agree?
Sounds good.
Okay, so that's it. We have our 5 best bikes to grow motorcycling. First, Super Cub. bike that has grown motorcycling and will continue to grow motorcycling. You know, it's ubiquitous around the world in terms of two-wheel transportation. So Super Cub for sure. Second Honda on the list, CB300R. It's a great priced motorcycle, easy to get into, super killer bike. Third bike, INT 650, Royal Enfield. It's pretty amazing that we got that bike on the list, but it goes to show that they really do know what they're talking about in terms of selling bikes to the masses, right? Stasic, it's probably the only non-actual motorcycle on the list.
True, but it's
got a twist throttle,
it's got a throttle,
and
no pedals.
it's bringing those kids right into motorcycling right away. So, and then last but not least, Honda's CRF trail bikes. Fun for the whole family. When you have fun, you stick with it and you stay with it.
Yeah, interesting. We've got three Hondas in here, and Honda's had a big initiative to bring new people into motorcycling. So, and I think the product line reflects that.
So, okay, that's it for our list. That's our 5 bikes. If you like what we're doing, like, share, subscribe. Of course, if you have any comments or questions, put them down below. Put us your 5 bikes down below. Tell us what you think of our list and suggest some lists to us, man. We always look at them, and like I said, if we end up using one, we'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching.